Welcome, everyone, to another exciting edition of Last Stop Penn Station presents the poster of the week. And Ian Riccaboni, Cary Silkin, AJ from Basant Creative and Web Design. Cary, we're doing one poster today because you said there's a knockdown, drag out special poster. You got a book. You've got all kinds of stuff related to this one.
Yeah, and talk about a one of a kind. You're a baseball card collector of Moses Malone.
Yeah.
We're sitting with the world's foremost. To keep some people, who's Moses Malone, one of the great basketball players of all time, and associated, was his whole career on the 76ers?
No, a good chunk, about 5 seasons.
Right. Ian's a Moses Malone collector.
Right.
Par excellence.
Number one on the PSA.
Well, what I was going to say was some of these rare Moses Malone cards that, are these highly graded, there's like, the population of it is very small.
Right.
Well, I dare anyone the population of this poster is 0.
Really?
And it's not because it's from an obscure place. It's not like it's from Boise, Idaho.
Sure.
So let's show the fans the poster.
Oh, wow. I'm nervous now. I'll be gentle here. All right. Wow. Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Curtain.
All right. A lot of good things happening on this one.
Well, first of all, as I like to ask, what year do you think this is?
All right. So I see Rocca, and I see it's Madison Square Garden. So that's any time between 53 and 61-ish.
Well, look at the second match.
Oh, Primo Carnera and the Crusher and Danny McShane. Oh, man, this has got to be 54. Or no, later.
Oh, come on now.
Crusher was in 54.
Bruno didn't start until 59.
Yeah, so this has got to be 60.
Good enough. It's 61.
Okay.
Point being is that Bruno was not in main event status yet.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in co-main event status. As usual, there's no TV.
No TV. You got to be there to see it.
Pro wrestling was so associated with television that, none of the Madison Square Garden shows were ever on TV.
No.
But just in case you saw the poster, you might have thought, I could just watch it on Channel 5.
Mm-hmm.
But no, there's no TV. You got to go live.
Yeah.
Got
the 8:30
what's that
start.
phone number?
Yeah, it says Telephone Columbus.
CO.
So
that's would be like 3, ABC.
Sure. Yeah, it'd be 3. It starts at 3, yeah. Or 2.
What was 1 and 2?
One's blank, 2's ABC.
Okay.
Yeah.
And O is whatever
Let's
number.
say 5 or 6,
right.
Yeah.
And then the number. It's blanked out, but tickets were available at the Madison Square Garden box office. You can see half of that.
And this is the original garden. This is the 49th to 50th.
Right, where the Verucci family peepery which unfortunately closed.
Oh,
but yeah.
what a travesty.
The original garden where I went to once, and it was not for wrestling. My parents took me to the circus when I was a wee lad.
Yeah.
I remember they had a sideshow at the circus.
Really?
And they had the world's biggest man. No, it wasn't.
Was it Haystacks Calhoun?
It's not 601 Haystacks Calhoun, nor was it Andre the Giant. It was just this huge man. And there was a sideshow. And my mom, who if you listen to Last Stop Penn Station, my mom, she liked classical music. And she wasn't, they came out of the Depression. They didn't go to college. Mm-hmm. My mom graduated high school. My dad didn't because you had to go to work.
Yeah.
But she liked good jazz, and she liked classical, and she liked Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used to pretend that I didn't like that stuff. She put on West Side Story. I'm like, wow, this is really good. But I didn't want to tell her that. She played Billie Holiday, Duke Ellington. But you could hear more about that on Last Stop Penn Station. So regarding my mom, we got there, let's say the circus was at 8 o'clock. Mm-hmm. They probably had a few performances. But we got there like maybe around 6:30, and they had a sideshow. And my father was like, come on. I remember, I swear I remember, my mother goes, Phil, don't take them to see that stuff, because this is still in the era where they would have, human oddities.
Yeah.
The girl with the beard, and so, but they had a giant.
Oh.
And I remember for a mere 25 cents buying a ring. It was like this ring, it could fit on the giant's finger, and it was like, this is a family show. But it's
yeah, I know what you're implying. Yes.
right. And I was like, wow, so,
Yeah.
and I think my mom was like, all right, that's enough. We don't need to see the bearded lady.
Yeah.
We don't need to see the, even if they were bogus, they didn't have the originals, the Siamese twins or whatever they had.
Sure.
So,
and we have a great Last Stop Penn Station episode if you want to go check that out on sideshows and county fairs and things like that. But
yeah. I had a really good conversation with Gary Juster, who he dealt at the Allentown Fair.
Yeah.
When they used to have the freak show there. There was a legendary guy. You can look him up on YouTube. There's good documentaries. The great Ward Hall. And his partner was a guy named, Chris Christ. And Chris Christ, even up to 10 years ago, this guy was drunk and sloppy. And he would wear, Ward Hall was on the Valley, on the, folks, sort of like the Barker at the Show World.
yeah.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's opening night at the Allentown Fair. And tonight there's 50 oddities. And tonight, just for opening night, children under the age of 3.
A big discount.
Free admission.
A big target audience too.
With a parent. We're going to raise that under the age of 4. and I would see Chris Christ, and this guy was like, and so Gary Juster knew him. He goes, yeah, Chris Christ promoted. He would book the buildings in Florida for WCW. He would book the buildings. The guy could barely stand up. He goes, yeah, he was sloppy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was at the Old Garden and I went to the circus. But let's talk about the wrestling card.
Yeah, I'd like to point out tickets up to $5. And that's more than we've seen on some events, especially considering it's 61 because it's New York City.
Right.
So that's a big thing. You said the box office, the opening contest, Mark Lewin, who
go ahead.
Many know as Purple Haze, Don Curtis, who's a mainstay in WWF, taking on Herb Carson and Swede Hansen.
Big Swede Hansen.
Yeah, who
lasted until the early 80s.
Who was there through 84. Yeah,
well,
at least.
There was a couple of bouts that were, they had other bouts.
Other bouts, yeah. What were the other bouts?
Well, Tito Carrion, who I looked up, and I would have printed some stuff out, but there was nothing to print.
Okay.
He was just...
he was a guy.
He was just a guy against Angelo Savoldi, who was not a guy.
Not a guy.
He was around for years.
Started IWCCW later on, yeah.
And he had his brother, Joe Savoldi. And at one point, Angelo Savoldi was the oldest living professional wrestler.
Oh, wow.
I think he passed away at 95 or 6. Anyway, he was on the card, as well as Dick Steinborn against Chick Garibaldi. Dick Steinborn wrestled all over the South, all over the country. Now, I should have done better research because we know the name Leo Garibaldi.
We do.
He was a booker in Florida. He might even be in the 55 and 5 set.
He may be. We haven't gotten to him yet, but he might be, yeah.
But he was around. So I want to make sure. Yeah, those were the 2 other bouts. The Lewin and Curtis, they defeated Swede Hansen and Herb Carson. which brings us to the next match. What is that in red there?
Sure. Pat O'Connor versus Hans Schmidt. And Hans Schmidt, one of the early innovators of the pile driver. We talked about him on 55 and 5. And Pat O'Connor, former NWA World Champion, although not yet. This is right before that, I think.
According to my notes, you never know if this is right.
Yeah.
If it says NWA World's Champion, as a matter of fact, I'm going to have you read something.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting talking more about this. But they didn't bill it.
Interesting. Maybe they didn't know yet, or maybe they weren't sure, or maybe they just didn't want to recognize it because they knew they were going to.
I think that might have been the case, but we're gonna find out more about that. Mm-hmm. Then that brings us to this big tag match. Now, we all know Bruno Sammartino.
Absolutely.
Primo Carnera. Do you know that name?
I've seen it.
Former pro boxer. Okay. Like many boxers, even names like Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis, they would referee.
Right, they were big referee draws.
Sometimes Joe Louis even wrestled a few times.
Small crowds in Cleveland.
He lost. He got fleeced by his management, and they're taking on the Crusher.
Yeah,
and Danny McShane. You know Danny McShane?
Again, that's a name I know, but
well, he was from Texas, and he was credited with being the man who invented the blade.
Interesting. Did not know that.
Yep. And the results of that match was, Bruno and Primo, they got the victory. Mm-hmm. And that brings us to the main event. Anthony Naraka and the great Johnny Valentine, father of Greg.
Yep.
But they wanted him.
They were brothers originally.
Right. Defeated the Kangaroos, which was the team of Al Costello and Roy Heffernan. Now, the reason I wanted you to read, I have this wonderful book. Do you have this?
I don't. I'm familiar with it.
You got to get this. Wrestling in the Garden. Mm-hmm. And there's some really interesting notes. And your vision and your voice, I'm still hoarse from all the fun I had in Florida. They have some really interesting notes about this. And if you'd be kind enough to read it too, it's not very long.
Absolutely. Rocca spent all but 10 minutes of the 36-minute match on the ring apron. Okay. This was the first appearance of Pat O'Connor in his capacity as the NWA champion. The build-up to an impending title showdown with Buddy Rogers was already some 10 weeks along, dating from a November 11th card at Chicago's International Amphitheater, booked largely by Vince McMahon.
Senior.
Yeah.
Kids.
Where O'Connor and Rogers had defended their respective alliance titles in co-main event. So Rogers was the U.S. or one of the U.S. champions at this point. Right?
So they did not want to give Pat O'Connor championship billing.
Right, because they had to have known that Buddy was going to get the belt.
Right.
They were going to try.
And the fans were probably seeing Pat O'Connor as champion on one of these syndicated shows. Continue, please.
Yeah, because the New York Commission didn't officially recognize wrestling titles. O'Connor's bout was barely a semifinal. And when he appeared well down the bill a month later, it was obvious McMahon wasn't according much significance to the NWA title. So this breaks with all the narratives you hear, because you hear, Vince Sr. was about tradition and about this and that. And he clearly had what he wanted to do in mind by this point. Of course, there's the fact of O'Connor's, quote, gymnasium-style approach to wrestling probably not being much appreciated by a fan base accustomed to brawling hell-for-leather ring exhibitions. His appearances in the Garden had been preceded by a series of exposures on the televised shows from Bridgeport, Connecticut. Again, part of the build-up toward a Rogers showdown. But it's safe to say O'Connor wasn't every ringsider's cup of tea. And, of course, they would meet in the match of the century during the biggest gate to that point in Comiskey. It said 800 people paid $3 a piece for standing room only tickets in addition to the gate. So this was a big $14,000 for gate of $45,000 plus an additional 800 people at $3 a piece.
And maybe thousands turned away.
Right. I mean, it sounds like it.
Well, it's interesting because Vince Sr., to fast forward 23 years, how Vince Jr. was planning to go to his expansion, or at least start his own. Vince Sr. knew he was breaking away from the NWA.
Yeah.
And he was, the WWF, Capital Sports had a name, but WWF didn't until early 63.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the seeds of it. But that's our poster.
Yeah, the Fabulous Kangaroos, one of the great early tag teams. In fact, if you watch the match of the century, they cut to the Kangaroos to get comments in one of the fun tidbits from that match.
At one point, they were managed by the great Wild Red Berry.
And he's on that as well, yeah. And Anthony Rocca, if you're just joining us or haven't seen 55 and 5, one of the biggest draws in New York history.
And what great actress we mentioned.
Oh, right. There was you mentioned from the documentary who's
damn it.
Apparently Anthony Rocca did very well for himself.
Yes, he was sought after by women just by wearing some nice tights. And
right.
certain women were just like, I want to meet him.
Well, and he did that leapfrog too. So a lot of the still photos had the tights and the leapfrog. So there you have it, folks. Thoughts on Anthony Rocca. Thoughts on the 61
there he is.
Madison Square Garden there. And,
we got to be happy like that.
We were joking about Bearcat, right?
All right.
With the pose. I think you're onto something. All of these great stars that wore the short tights and had the nice big athletic legs and things, they sit wide-legged and legged open. I think you might be onto something, Cary.
Hey, if you
little subliminal messaging.
If you got it, flaunt it.
I mean, what a card this was, though, and a big crowd, big draw. It should have been a heck of a tag team match, and
no disqualifications, no countouts
to a finish. Yeah,
right.
And on the results here, it just
all finishes.
All finish, yeah, amazing. Wow, there you have it.
Well, we want to thank Conrad and everybody associated with ad-free shows.
Yeah, we appreciate all the help, and we appreciate you watching us here on Ad-Free Shows. If you want to hear more of Cary and I, or want to take a walk through memory lane, check out 55 and 5 at 55and5.com. We go one by one through the stars of the 1955 Parkhurst wrestling card set. And check out our podcast, Last Stop Penn Station, on all podcast providers. We want to thank AJ, our producer, Cary, and I'm Ian Riccaboni. Happy wrestling, everybody.